All right, folks, here we are live again with another edition of Come Cloud with Us. I'm Chris Gill, here with my cohort Abdul, and today we're bringing to you the wonderfully fabulous Joy Apple. So, welcome,
Hello. Thank you.
welcome. Abdul, if you'd like to kick it off, any questions right from the get go?
Yeah, so let's talk about before we jump into the session. Joey, I know you've been to a couple of conferences this year, so just want to
Mhm.
take your take on how was it, Ignite, the other ones, post pandemic, because I know a lot of people wanted to go up there, but they were nervous about, okay, are they going to be masked? Are they going to be, exactly a lot of interaction? So how did it go?
It went fabulous. The energy in person right now is off the scale because we're so hungry for it, right? We are, even the most introverted of us, we are at our core social animals. But yeah, it was so good and it's fun. I'm already starting to see the repeat offenders at the conferences over and over and over again, and it's just really been almost like a more normal year for me. Last year I did a couple of things, but not like this year. I think I was at 6 different in-person events in the last 5 months.
Wow, that's a lot.
So I love it. It's been great.
And so far, that was like a lot of people. Did you see a lot of crowd? Are we seeing a lot of like post-pandemic crowd or
I would say yes. I would say for sure at Ignite, uh, there was more participation than was anticipated. You could tell at some of the little breakout areas. I mean, it was crowded and it was hard to kind of get to where you could hear. I just really don't think there was the anticipation of as many in-person people as there was. But I was so impressed because the response to it was instantaneous. Like 1 minute, the speakers in the breakout rooms didn't have microphones, and the next session they did. So you saw a really fast response to that. Um, a couple of the conferences, people, I could tell the organizers were like, it's not what it used to be. Fair, right? Because we're still learning that new normal. But man, it's mighty fine to be back out there again.
yeah, I can imagine that. I know when Chris went to Ignite, he was complaining about not having enough bacon in there. So
Is there ever
Well,
enough
we
bacon?
all have our thing, right?
Fair, fair.
yeah, for me, donuts. I need donuts, right? So yeah.
There was a
But
Sasquatch.
There was
wow,
and dinosaurs, inflatable dinosaurs too.
Yeah, yeah.
that's true. Power platform. Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly. Yeah,
But you're
Yeah,
totally right. I mean, Joy, you hit it right on the nose because I think a lot of us, like, we forgot what it's like to be in person and to really have those engaging conversations. And then I think folks that were running some of the events are like, oh yeah, I forgot to mic this event or I forgot to whatever else. I mean, it's like, I think a lot of us took for granted, here's the checklists that we had of old and pre-pandemic and whatever else. And it's like thrown out the window. Hey, we got to do this again. It's like, where'd that go? Anybody
yeah.
can, where's my list? Where's my stuff? What do I do? But it was
My
good.
first
They came
time,
together. So
my first time doing a PowerPoint presentation back with the screen was behind me, right? It was like, okay, I used to do this all the time. Where did that memory, where's that core skill that I thought I had? Where did that go?
yeah.
no, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so we'll let you get started with your presentation. So talk to us
Okay.
about what are you presenting, and you know, let's go from there.
Well, I'm going to confess something. This session was born out of a rant.
Mm.
It's not an angry session, but I was just not angry. But one of the screenshots, and I'll call it out when I get to the slide, it really was my calendar on the day. And I was like, this is insane. I what there's supposed to be work-life balance, right? We're supposed to be IT professionals and know how to manage our meetings and manage our schedules and our calendars. And I was in the middle of a meeting fatigue fueled burnout and kind of had to just went away. I took a Friday off and it was a very magical Friday. I did nothing but just be alone and be quiet. And this session came to me during that. It's like, how are we supposed to stay alive and stay vibrant and healthy in this virtual world? So I kind of riffed on that for staying alive in a virtual world, because it's like the humanity started to be pulled away from it. Everything is a meeting. And that, so it's kind of where this came from. There's the first few slides, and I guess I'll start figuring that out as I chit chat with you.
Oh, no worries.
And I know a lot of companies are doing no meetings on Fridays just because people got so burned out during the pandemic, like 5 days on screen. They're like, yeah, just take it easy for one day.
Well, we've
I
even
think that's
had
a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, I was just rethinking of, you said meetings, and, today I was just having a conversation too about, have more folks going into the office and whatever else, figuring out whatever this balance is. And honestly, it's like, the 30, the 1 hour minutes on the mark, whatever, it's like that books the entire day up. Number one, if you're actually in the office, you can't possibly get from one meeting to another if you have to walk or run or whatever else. You might want to take a break, build in the 5 or 10 minutes in the front or in the end or whatever, but I'm trying not to steal your thunder. But yeah, I think we're all kind of there trying to just rethink how some of the stuff works.
Oh, for sure. And like you said, when you've got the back-to-back meetings in the real world, you would never put them literally starting in 1 minute, start the next, because you would have to actually traverse and go to, a conference room, get up and move and go. So you would stop by the restroom, you would get a water, you would walk, your brain would be transitioning. And that's not necessarily the case anymore.
No.
Okay, I think I've got this dialed in. Let's see. Do you see a slide?
Oh, beautiful.
It looks like it worked. Look at that. I can do it. Well, perfect. Let's jump in, and you guys feel free. Let's have a conversation as we go. I know we've got people watching as well, so if anything is resonating with you, jump into the comments. Let's have a conversation as we go, because the number one thing about this Microsoft community is we help each other. So if you have tips, tricks, experiences, stories, let's talk about it. All right. So the obligatory, who the heck is this person anyway? I mean, I am Joy Apple. I have had the honor of being awarded with Microsoft MVP. I'm a 2-time MVP now, but I've been working with Microsoft products and technologies for 15 years. I started in Moss. Any other Moss people out here? Woo-hoo! We've come a long way, baby, right? We've come a long way. And if we've never met on social media, I hope you find me. I am the Joy of SharePoint. So Joy of SharePoint is me. Let's talk about it, because let's be really real. We always dreamed of working from home, didn't we? That was kind of the goal. I can remember I had to have a surgery like 12 years ago, and they were able to set it up. I was on a help desk at the time and a part-time server admin, and they were able to set it up so I could get calls at home and work from home, and that gave me the taste of it. It's like, well, I should even have to go into the office if we can always do this. You don't have to buy as much gas, especially these days. That's a big deal. I mean, you walk from the bedroom, grab a cup of coffee, you're in the office, you sit down, you're working. It's magic. Throw a load of laundry in the dryer in between calls, eat lunch at your desk. You don't care. Better focus, because this is for me. This might be for you too. I don't know. Chris, are you a talker? You get distracted if someone stops by?
On occasion. I get distracted just in general. So
squirrel. But yeah, right. It was kind of the dream that we all had. But before COVID, it was like, that's not happening, right? It was a rare privilege for someone to be able to telecommute. And I actually had some like different job interviews or would talk to managers about it. And do you think we could? But you always knew like there was this one person that messed it up for everyone if they had ever tried it or they abused the privilege or, if you're working from home, how can we tell that you're really working, right? You heard that a lot. Okay, it is what it is, right? Isn't that what we always say? Then COVID, right? Now we have kind of BC before COVID and AC after COVID. On March 20th of 2020, I know you all can read, but I'm still going to just step through some of this. 44 million office workers got sent home. It felt like it was just like that. So, Abdul, do you remember where you were the day the world shut down?
I think I was in the office, so yeah, everybody was getting home. We were getting emails, we were getting calls, we were just panicking. Everybody was like, wow, what's happening? So yeah.
Chaos. I was in Indianapolis, Indiana on a customer site, and I don't pay attention to the news probably like a responsible adult should. I mean, I knew something was happening, but I wasn't really paying that much attention. And then like the more they started talking about it, like during breaks and lunch, I would kind of Google and look at my phone or whatever. And I was like, oh, this is like really serious. This isn't just overseas anymore. Went home, sent out a ton of statements of work for customers for training because they knew they were going to have to send everyone home within the next 24 to 48 hours. And they needed to know how to use Teams. We're going to send them home and they don't know what to do, even though we've been trying to get them to use it for how many years before COVID? I'm just saying.
Yeah, and actually, funny you mentioned that one of the companies next to us in the same building, they actually all had desktops, so they were freaking out because they had to send people home. Nobody had a laptop, and like, oh my god, what are we going to do now? So yeah, forget Teams. They had bigger issues than Teams, right?
I have a customer. I've transitioned to a new role, but they were an insurance company. And they actually had about 3 or 4 weeks into the pandemic, they sent around an email sign-up sheet to allow people in shifts to go to the office and get their desk phones to take them home.
Wow.
So the things like that you don't think about, right? But March 20th, 2020, we gained 12 million users that week in Teams. 12 million users. That's huge. The last time I checked I knew this today was coming up, so I went and I did a check. October 2022, yes, we now have 270 million users reported in Teams. Tell me once in the history of the world there's been that kind of an uptick in the usage of technology. Crazy.
Really hasn't.
That is crazy. And think about what Microsoft and others would have to have done to keep that up, right? Because nobody can actually expect that kind of heavy lifting on the back end.
100%. And I was awarded my first MVP in that spring of 2020. And I got to sit in on some of the Teams product group calls and listening to just the chaos and the activity and the action. Unbelievable. I don't remember now. I need to go back and find out. I'm sure I could ping Lori. Like the hundreds of feature releases that were bumped up and implemented in that year. Hats off to the Teams team because they did amazing work. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it just a little bit. Before COVID, only approximately 15% of some European companies that were interviewed before COVID had flexible working policies. Summer 2020, we went from 15 to 76%.
Wow.
Productivity did not decline. And I think all of us can go, of course it didn't decline. We were working our butts off. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Employee productivity increased, sometimes up to 13%. And I found this meme and I had to include it because I would know it was time to take a break because my dog would be looking at me like, lady, seriously, I got to go outside. That was my cue. And my husband he was my hero because he got sent home and he would come sneak food under my webcam.
Nice.
So he kept me
Oh, you
fed.
get those snacks too? Like
Yes,
that,
it was
right
like-
over here on the edge of my desk. They just magically show up.
Those are the real heroes, man. Not all heroes wear capes.
Nope.
So, as we're moving through the pandemic and we're settling into work from home, the average work from home employee had an extra 67 hours of meetings that year.
Wow.
Just more. That's just extra, right? And now that everything is digital, right? Somebody needs you, you get an alert, you get a notification, you get a pop-up, you get, right? There's noise, there's sound, there's visible things you see happening all the time. Meeting fatigue is rampant. And you would think we'd be used to it by now, but we're not. And we're going to talk about why in just a second. And we're seeing that people are still feeling either not included. I'm not sure if unincluded is a word, but I used it. I didn't get the red squiggled. Or am I okay?
It's safe. We're good.
Okay.
PowerPoint safe.
I mean, if it accepts it, it's got to be right.
Yeah.
I'm saying. And so even now, 2 years, 2020, we're soon to be 3 years into it. We still feel like we're not included when we're at our work from home day, if perhaps we have that flexible or hybrid approach, and we still feel disconnected. And there's a few different reasons for that. The main one, it wasn't supposed to happen the way it happened. It's just, we were at work one day, we heard some drama, crazy crap was happening, and we got sent home. Some of us not knowing what to do because we didn't have a laptop or we didn't have our phones. We couldn't get to our phone number. VPNs were not built for every employee to be on it 8 to 10 hours a day, right? It was pretty chaotic. Managers weren't sure what to say, so communications wasn't great. And yeah, it was like nonstop 24/7. And when you think about the psychology of that, because you're like, well, surely we'd be over it by now, right? It's almost 2023. It's old news. Why do these numbers still matter? I think the main reason they still matter is because throughout our collective history, never have we had changes happen in our companies and our work statuses, or probably even our own lives, that happened that drastically and that quickly. And you couple that with all of the stress of what was going on around us, regardless of how we feel about how things were handled or weren't handled or whatever, there was a lot of unknowns going on. And we put all that together and we're still reeling from it. I don't know if you all sense that when you're working with your coworkers, customers, or vendors, that there's still this, okay, how are we going to recover from it now? Are you still sensing that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's there. And the other point I want to make is also the anxiety of not physically seeing people. So the perception you have is, hey, I don't know if they think we're not working, we're just sitting. So you have to be constantly there on your A game, even as soon as a message comes in, you're like, oh, I have to respond now. Otherwise, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, this guy's taking it easy.
Right. I'm going to tell a fun story. It was at Comms V Next this last fall. I'm surprised. So Sharon Weaver and her husband Jonathan were there. Sharon and I did a pop-up Teams nail bar. It was fabulous. But Jonathan was trying to make sure that his computer didn't fall asleep while he just ran and did something super fast. We were going to watch it for him and all that. And I was like, dude, don't you know, you open Notepad, you find something heavy, you set it on the space bar, and you just walk away. That works for your status. That works for, and he was like,
Oh my God.
he says, I don't think I can do that. I'm like, that's fair. But, I'm just saying, there's ways to get around the status.
Oh, I've heard stories about where people actually wrote script that teams would not actually go away or would not go into away mode. They're always showing green. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of anxiety about that still. I was having a conversation with a coworker yesterday, and she was like, well, you you really can't or shouldn't be doing personal things during your workday. I said, I'm going to put on my modern work strategist hat for just a second. Yeah, you can. Do you do work things during your personal time? That's the work-life balance. And it was like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
See,
But
this
there's
resonates so much because if you don't mind,
yeah,
I've been taking, it's like all. Let's be honest. I mean, every single person has had their schedule changed in some way, shape, or form, right? Um, Kids, I'm picking up kids from school or whatever else, running errands and doing whatever I need to do to keep things going. I've
yes,
had many, and I'm sure all of us have been there. Many a phone call from the car. You get in, you belt and buckle your belt, whatever. You throw your phone down. All right, here it is, 3 o'clock. I got to take this call. And usually I would do it off video. And a few weeks
sure.
ago, having a chat with someone, and I took myself, put my video on. He's like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were in a car. It sounds great. You were engaged, whatever else. There was a great meeting, blah blah blah. But it was like basically a post meeting wrap up that we were just talking through it. And I'm sitting there like,
Yeah.
I didn't think anything of it, but for someone else, they're like the light bulb moment, what I call light bulb moments of, hey, you know what? This is actually working. I didn't notice it wasn't any different. It doesn't really matter. It's a thousand other reasons, but
Mhm.
I thought it was really interesting. It kind of resonated with me when you brought that up. So.
Well, I think and that's really funny. That kind of ties into the next slide there. Our coworkers are now humans, our colleagues, our customers, our bosses, whatever that professional relationship is, we've become human to each other, I think, during COVID. And that is one of the silver linings. Out of every bad, difficult time, I believe blessings can come out of that. I was having a call with a customer. He was in Ireland, and so quite a bit later in his day. And his daughter came in her PJs with her stuffed giraffe, climbed up in his lap, and he sat there and held her, and she just kind of went limp while we talked for about half an hour about SharePoint migration. Right? That's human. If my cat jumps up, and that might very well happen over the course of this conversation and walks in front, I'm not embarrassed about that anymore because cats do that, and we're human.
Actually, that's a funny story, yeah, because when COVID hit, I would have my kids at home and they would come and peep and say, oh, what's going on? Like, because working in the computer, sometimes kids don't even know what daddy is doing, right? So they would peek in, oh, and people like, hey, you have kids, so just say hi moment or whatnot. So that was,
Yeah.
I guess that put everybody at ease that, yeah, this is common now.
Mm-hmm. And it's okay if somebody's kid pops up. One of my former customers, their rule was if a pet made its presence known, it must be introduced to the call.
Very
It
nice.
was awesome. It was awesome. But I think that's one of the good realities that came out of this pandemic situation we found ourselves in, working from home. I mean, the work from home scenario did not turn out to be as lackadaisical or glamorous or easy, because it wasn't just us that got to work from home. It was everybody in the house, right? Not all of us were able to prepare a place to work from home. And yeah, I mentioned, I would say when it's the screenshot on this slide of the green calendar, that was my calendar. Yes, I did have some focus time in there to actually do things, but the rest of that was meetings. You see, I have highlighted in white. I would go pencil in, I need a break. I need 15 minutes before this next 4.5 hours of meeting hits. And I would put sanity break. And Holly, the most amazing project manager that ever lived, she would see that and she'd be like, okay, we'll book you. I understand. We can't break Joy, so we'll give her 15-minute sanity break. It is hectic. And I think we're still dealing with the everything is a meeting quandary, and how do we solve it? Internally at Orchestra last week, we were talking about a webinar, and what are we going to do if the attendance isn't what we want it to be? But I think we found that live attendance on those types of events, it's not what it used to be, because everything is a meeting. So we kind of want to be offline for a little while. But the numbers of people that go back and watch the recordings is a lot higher because now we can watch it in my own time. Right? Balance.
Or they can watch it while we're talking really super fast like chipmunks too, and that's okay.
Guilty. Guilty. I love that. I love that feature. Now I'm like 2 times is too fast for me, especially if it's a technical thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, what just happened?
One
I do have a
1.5,
coworker that I just
1.7, maybe.
say again.
I'm sorry. I said maybe 1.5, 1.75, somewhere in between.
Yeah.
There is a good.
Yeah, my colleague David did a quick run through of something the other day, and I was editing it in Camtasia, and I was like, we're going to slow him down to 90% because he was just like, whoa, dude, I have no idea what you're doing. Slow it. Okay, but 2022, right? Here we are, present day, and we are still trying to figure out how to make this hybrid work. It's still difficult. And I think part of it is because we're still trying to clean up the fallout of what happened when we pushed everything to the cloud. We do have employees out there that are hearing demands that they don't appreciate, that you are returning to work no matter what. And it feels like punishment because my productivity increased or didn't decrease.
Mm-hmm.
And I proved I can do this responsibly. Now you're taking the option away from me. Right? So that's a difficult path that a lot of organizations are having to tread. And managers are under a lot of pressure because they have to make it all work. But this is new. This is very, very new, especially for those very traditional places where there was no such thing as telecommuting. And that's tricky. And it's a hard place for people to be in. So we start kind of looking around and like, well, what the heck do we do? How do we make this work for everyone? Can you please all the people all the time? So I have a few slides I'll go through that are kind of my thoughts. But if you have some, I'd love to hear it. People online, you can go to the comments. All right, gentlemen, feel free to chime in. But my number one thing, and I started doing this literally day one of the shutdown. Turn on the webcam. Don't roll your eyes yet. Not yet. You can roll them in a minute. As soon as I started canceling my trips, no, that's not true. It was before that. I started turning on my webcam just because body language, right? People aren't going into the office. They're not seeing their coworkers. We really see each other here. It's more of a connection than just looking at circles with people's initials in it. That's so fake to me. Together mode in Teams does feel more natural, except that it freaks me out to see myself sitting in the audience. That bothers me. So are you guys webcam guys? When you're in a call, you got the hair brushed and you're just ready to go on camera?
Yeah, I think that works better if you are on a video call rather than phone because we're so used to seeing, to your point, body language and how the other person is even, taking your message because on the phone you don't know. And when we're chatting, when you are chatting with Teams or email, you don't come up like the message doesn't come across because you don't know like how the person is sounding, right? Like if I read it, I could take it as negative. If you take it, you might take it positive, right? Like they're different. The way you read it, perception is reality. So having that video on makes you feel, okay, yeah, this was a good message and this wasn't a good message. For us, like I know when one of our companies was doing virtual happy hours. So they would after work, half an hour, they're like, yep, come on, turn on the camera, just chit chat about, bring a drink with you, talk about family, no work talk, but just out of talk, like if you were at a bar doing, happy hour. So I think that helped also because the funny thing is a lot of people joined during COVID. So some people did not even physically meet, and they're like, oh, I haven't met you in person, but we've been coworkers for a long time now. So the bonding had to be there somehow.
Yeah, it it makes a big difference. But my follow-up to this would be maybe turn the camera off every once in a while, right? It's not either or. You don't have to always have it on, or it shouldn't always be off. I think there's a healthy balance there. Psychologically, it is very taxing to be on camera all the time. Now you can tell I've worked through some of this, but I was reading this whole in-depth article about it. Because typically, especially if you're new to it, you feel like you have to sit very still in your box, right? And even though you're not really looking at someone in the eye, you kind of are. And your brain finds that very threatening. Psychologically, that hindbrain back there is like, this person has been staring me down for an hour. You wouldn't do that in real life unless there was maybe something unusual going on, right?
Yep.
So it's a stressor. Now, we're again almost 3 years into it. So man, I'll sit back. I'd turn in my chair. If I were standing up, I would be bouncing back and forth on my feet, right? You kind of get over some of that, but I still give myself a no webcam day. Man, I rock the ponytail, the sweatshirt. I'm eating during meetings and I become a master of that mute button. It don't matter. No one can see me. Very freeing.
But I think it also depends on the audience too, right? Like if you're talking to the customer, the expectation is you would have the camera on. If it's coworkers or if you've talked to coworkers a long time, they won't even mind. Like, yeah, I'm multitasking myself, or honestly, we have so many meetings now and you're just there to listen in. So like, why even open the camera? Because I won't be saying anything.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So,
I will, if I'm meeting someone for the first time, for sure. If someone else is going to be presenting and doing most of the talking, I'll be there for the first few minutes. Then it's like, goodbye. And back. So then the other piece of this is that now that everything is virtual, do you have notification overload? Right? Because I feel like it looks something like this for a lot of us all day long, every day. Right? There's calls, there's ringing, this thing is going off, there's text. Is it an email? Is it a chat? Is it a channel chat? Is it a Teams message? Is it WhatsApp? Is what's happening? It's all these things happening all the time. And the weight of that on the brain, much less the distraction value of it, but that can be quite a bit. And I will say, when I went through some of Microsoft's content on modern collaboration architecture, it was this brilliant light bulb moment for me. Because if we're using the right tool for the right job, our brain starts to intuitively know which notification is more important than the other. So aka.ms/ they pronounce it Maca, even though it looks like Mocha. I encourage you to check it out. It's wonderful content. But that leads me to the Teams and Yammer conversation. I used to roll my eyes at Yammer. I'm sorry, but I did. And when I went through the Maca content, I actually tweeted a public apology to Yammer because the light bulb went, oh. If everything is in Teams, all of the fun stuff, all of the cute stuff, all the, then every notification that comes from Teams is going to come to me with the same importance and the same weight. So it might be the cute pet photo of the week notification, or it could be my boss asking me where my deliverable is. It's all coming from Teams, so I have to look regardless. But if we break out and say Teams is for teamwork, my boss's notifications are going to come from there. My task-based work is going to come. Notification comes to me. My employment status is maybe attached to it. But if it comes out of Yammer, I'm not going to get fired if I don't go laugh at the hilarious GIF that my coworker posted in the water cooler community. Right? So, and actually, Yammer's a lot less intrusive on the notifications. I don't have to join a community. I can just go when I want to, look through, interact, and have conversations, and never be tied to notifications. If I want those notifications, I can join the community and I can decide how those come to me. Beautiful. So it really starts to give us this built-in filter or scale of this is more important because it's coming from Teams. This can fly under the radar. I can check on those Yammer notifications when the time is right. It's beautiful. And speaking of notifications, notification management is a big deal because if we don't manage them, they will manage us. And we become, okay, I got to tell my Pavlov's dog story. So I'm in Oklahoma. I'm in Tulsa, which is an amazing city. But we didn't have COVID for real long. I mean, we know it was there, but there's not a lot of us in very small, tight quarters, right? So by about the summer of 2020, most of our restaurants were open again, and they had the social distancing, like only certain tables within certain proximities and, things like that. So my husband and I were at our favorite Mexican restaurant at happy hour because apparently on Thursdays, this Mexican restaurant feels that prime rib is the thing to do. Heck yeah. So we're going, and I hear Teams ringing. It's not me. So I go looking around. Who's got Teams? Yeah, I want to know. I can help you with that. Here's my car. It was the Microsoft commercial on the TV.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Pavlov's dog. Teams is going off, and I'm like, oh, work. No, it was the commercial, right? That was a moment where I was like, I gotta turn off some notifications, right? Because it's funny now. It was not funny then. So I encourage anyone that can hear my voice, go take a look at what you get notifications for. I took some screenshots of how I have my Teams set up. Personal app mentions, banner and feed. I figure if someone is literally calling my name in Teams, I should be attentive to that. Team mentions, I get the banner and feed. That banner, we used to call it toast because it would pop up. That's that little pop-up that you would get there inside of Teams. Replies to conversations that I've started. I will put that just in the feed. I don't need a banner because I'm trying to work, right? I don't need that popping up, but I'll go check my feed. Replies to conversations that I replied to, I really don't need something distracting me for that. Likes and reactions. Yeah, I want to know. I want to know that everybody found my GIF or my comment riveting or hilarious or whatever, but I don't need that to distract me, right? So you can really customize the way these things are coming to you to reduce the distractions. Chris, you mentioned that you get distracted easily. Same. So by not hearing that bing or not seeing that little purple box out of the corner of my eye, really, because I gotta know. If I know somebody said something, I see that box, I gotta click on it. It's a me problem. Give yourself time to work, right? We were talking about this at the very beginning about how those back-to-back meetings. About 2 or 3 months ago, a customer saw my calendar because I was going to go share something. How you share and then you flip your screens around. He was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Was that your real calendar? I was like, yes. He said, I'd quit my job. How do you do that? When do you work? I said, well, I do focus time every morning to catch up on everything from the day before. Focus time, because it mutes all the notifications coming out of Teams. It mutes all the things. It's beautiful. Now, this can be a hard sell culturally for some of our organizations. I did have a client tell me once, we were kind of talking about it. Oh, my boss would never be okay with me not seeing their notifications immediately. That's a culture problem. Maybe that's an expectation problem of one particular manager. But there are things you can do. You can go in and certain people are allowed to break through, right? You can set some priorities that way. But setting up focus time for yourself and honoring that, not going, oh, well, this request was really important, so I'll just go ahead. Honor yourself. be kind to yourself. Give yourself time to get work done. It really can make a beautiful difference in your day. I hear so often that people see the Viva Insights email come up. They're like, oh, I don't ever do it. I just delete it. Stop deleting it. Read it, because it'll get better. The more you use it, the more the AI learns and it gets smarter. And you use it to go set your focus time up or go to the Viva Insights app in Teams. Give yourself time to focus. Do you guys use focus time?
I do, and I love it. And to your point, I get the emails and saying, okay, this time, well, how much time I was in meetings and the focus time and everything. So yeah, that's amazing. And to your point, right, it depends on the culture, but luckily for me, the organizations I've worked in, I do focus time, and focus time is to catch up on reading, on, catching up on whatnot, right? Emails, writing blogs, or what have you. And yeah, it's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing I want to also point out is a lot of companies I've noticed are moving to a 50-minute meeting slot rather than 1 hour. And they're giving you that 10-minute break. So, hey, you should not be doing any meetings for an hour, because then
Yeah.
the 10-minute break, now we don't have the water cooler talk, but go to the restroom or get some coffee or tea or whatnot. And yeah, because we're moving meeting to meeting, and to your point, right, like it's just you're stuck in that meeting, and then suddenly you go to a new meeting, your head explodes because you're like, oh, what are we talking here again? And like, yeah.
Well, it's like I call it whiplash, switching between those meetings so fast.
Exactly. The content switching or context switching is real for that. One of the other things too, I know you mentioned it. I think at one point in time I read an article, I think it was around the 37-minute mark, where it's like folks just start losing focus. Can't really, it's like functionally, mentally, they're checking out. So it's like that 30 to 37-minute mark. So it makes sense that, it's like, try not to go to that 50 minutes. I mean, we've had those conversations. I know we've all been there, but been having those conversations on my teams too. It's like, what's really working? Like, do we really need that amount of time? Are there other effective ways to communicate that's not doing a video meeting or whatever else? Can we get in there and get some of the blockers out of the way and then go back to doing the work?
I feel like you all had access to the slide deck because we're
I got a crystal ball over here somewhere. It's hidden. You got to find it though in the background somewhere.
So let's talk about that. All those meetings. It feels like a lot. You know why? Because it is. So I love this little graph. It kind of pauses a few times so we can just take in the numbers. So COVID starts right there. And these numbers are increases.
Oh, wow.
There's our holiday dip.
Whoa.
Those are increases. Okay, so 148% increase in meetings the year from February of 2020 to 21, right? As of spring 22, we are now at a 252% increase in meetings.
Wow.
So, does it always have to be a meeting? This is what you were just saying, right? There are other ways, right? We have Teams. Teams is for teamwork, right? Could it be asynchronous communication? Do we have to have an hour meeting to get everybody's updates for the week? Or could we go to Teams and let people answer? Set expectations, of course. You have to do it. You need to do it. But maybe I can't do it every Tuesday at 11 because I've got this one customer that really wants to meet, but I'm going to try to make it. I can put it in Teams at 12:30, right? And it still be on time. In fact, I think I have it on the next slide. Yeah, the weekly update app or the update app that's in Teams now. It's beautiful. I say now, it's probably about 6 months old, maybe. Use Teams. When I was running the delivery side of Pate Group up until a couple months ago, we got to where every Wednesday we do the midweek check-in. So it was Wednesday. So of course you have to open it with the what car commercial was that? Remember, Mike, guess what day it is, right? Wednesday check-in. But use the apps that are at your disposal. If it doesn't have to be a meeting, reach out to people in Teams, and you can put your finger on the pulse of things, right? And know, does this really need to be face-to-face in Teams, or can we do this asynchronously, right? We got options. We have so many awesome options now. But maybe it does need to be a meeting. Fine, it's got to be a meeting. How do we make it a better meeting? Please, and I'm bad about not doing this. I am trying to be better. Put an agenda in there. Why are we here and what are we going to talk about? Because there's a good chance nobody or very few of us have had time to truly prep for that meeting before we get there. So if I can go to that invite and go, oh, yeah. Okay, Chris wanted to have this. That's what we're covering. Yep, okay. Now I'm ready, right? Yep. Even if it's just a sentence. We need to talk about the changes that are coming up to the bring your device to work policy. Cool. Now I know why I'm here. Does it have to be an hour? Like I said, you guys had these slides ahead of time, apparently.
Yeah.
Probably not. Right. And it's interesting. You were saying 30 to 37 minutes. My standard that I try for now is 45 minutes. I've got my Outlook set to where if it's going to be, if I try to schedule from like 10 to 11, it ends up actually, this is fun. I don't think I have this spelled out in another slide. If I do, I'll skip it later. They have found that humans being as we are, if I have a meeting that starts at, let's say 10:15 and it ends at 11, we'll stop at 11 because that's a hard time. If we go from 10 to 10:45, probably nothing's really happening between 10:45 and 11. So we can fudge, we can go over, we can keep going to 11. It's fine. Right? So we're more likely to break the boundary of the meeting when it's set to start on the hour and then end at one of those weird times. And I'll confess, it's weird. It's weird to start a meeting at 10:05 or 10:15. But it's pretty magical, just even if you're just sitting there for 5 minutes to go, oh, okay, so I'll look at this and I'll just pause my camera and I'll mute, I'll go fill up a coffee cup. Right? You've got a few minutes, and that's a wonderful thing. So I try to do 25 minutes or 45, not 30 in an hour. That's my goal. My goal. For our hybrid world, I mean, this used to happen from time to time. Someone would be dialing into the call, but there wouldn't be a number for them to call into, right? How many times you're in the conference room and everyone's scrambling to get Brenda number so she can call in? That doesn't happen much, but make sure that meeting space that we're going into, we're going to have a conference room or somebody's office and we've got people dialing in. Is it set up for everyone? Does the conference room have the right kind of technology in it so the person that's calling in from Teams can hear everybody that's in the room? Stick to time, because those remote workers are probably going to have to hop off that call and go to another one. Whereas if you're in the office, probably not. You've probably got that walk to the next meeting time already built in. Virtual meetings, we have already talked about it. They're more taxing because of all the things going on. They may have sick kids at home. Just being mindful of all those things come up can really make it a much more inclusive meeting, regardless of in-person or hybrid. And if we are in that hybrid state, just asking everyone to raise the hand in Teams can be a good way that everyone gets their voice heard, regardless if we can see their face or not. So it's like the hybrid housekeeping tips for modern world.
So what have you seen regarding the hybrid? Like, let's say if majority of the employees are on site doing a brainstorming session, I think that becomes a challenge because then somebody has to be on camera to see the whiteboard, and like, yeah, we don't have that. The whiteboard is not the electronic whiteboard, right? It's not a smart
Right.
whiteboard. So I'm like, yeah, that becomes a challenge.
Definitely.
When have you come across that experience?
More and more, I am seeing people flip to either a OneNote or using the virtual whiteboard, Miro. What are the Mural, and what's the fancy one that we're starting to see more and more of? Drawing a blank. But I'm starting to see more people utilize those types of tools for the hybrid brainstorming sessions. But I have also been on a call not too long ago where, like you said, they had the camera on the whiteboard. But of course, now if I'm the one on the other side of the screen, I can just watch. I can't participate.
Yeah.
And that's sad because everyone likes to draw. So really embracing those tools that can let everyone get their hands on it and be part of the conversation. It's a great Figma, that's the one. But it's really a great way to kind of make that inclusive and everyone's thoughts are heard. Let's be honest. If I can't really participate and they're not even asking me my opinion, am I really there? Am I really going to be investing a lot of my time and energy? Or can I just chat with somebody later and be like, I'll peace out. Just let me know what you guys decide.
Fair point, yeah. And I think the technology has to be also up to speed. So if somebody's sitting at home and you have to have the touch screen or whatnot, are companies even thinking about it? Because sure, you have the mouse, but the mouse might not work in conjunction with your the pen, which is much better.
Oh yeah, drawing with a mouse. Oof. You would never be able to see what I did. You wouldn't be able to tell.
I'd go on a flip side too. I mean, we're talking about, for a good amount of folks that, we just have the basic needs of, we need to see it, we need to hear it, right? But there are other bits and pieces too, where I found, and man, Joy, if you have this on another slide, I swear, I mean, I have not seen this, but if it comes out, but I've used a lot of the accessibility tools inside of Teams and inside of some of these applications now. So, things like live transcription or, the seeing closed caption in Teams meetings. Man, it's great to be, like I have to focus on something here, but I can still see the words kind of coming across. And for me to focus on just a word sometimes and not hear all the background noise and everything else that's going on is huge. So
yeah,
it really works for me. But yeah.
I love the reactions because that is your voice, quote unquote, so to speak, being heard without having to unmute, without having to pause, without having to. I really like being able to give and get feedback that way. The transcript after a meeting, beautiful thing. Yeah. Beautiful. So a little bit of homework for anyone watching. Go evaluate those settings. See what you got. Give yourself some buffer between meetings. I promise it will make a big difference, especially if you couple that break with Viva Insights Headspace. So apparently I'm a snarky person because I probably said I eye roll at things several times during this conversation. I eye rolled at this too. I did. I was like, really? You're bringing meditation to Teams? Oh, it's so crunchy. I don't get it. And then I tried it. I mean, right, I'll try anything once. So it was one of those days I thought I was going to pull my hair out. And I had 3 minutes in between meetings. And I did a 1-minute breathing exercise. I felt better going into that meeting. So try it. They have music you can play now too. I think that's actually down there on the bottom. My brain is always like doing weird things in the background and it's like thinking random thoughts. So I'll play like the zoom out music or the lo-fi tunes. It's almost like that gives my brain something to attach to so it's not spinning. kind of nice. It's kind of nice. Makes me less hyper. And research shows your brain needs a break. If you've not ever gone and kind of dived into the Work Trend Index content that Microsoft has put out there, there is some beautiful information. I highly, highly recommend digging into some of this special report they did in April of last year. This will be relevant till the end of time, I think. Your brain needs breaks. It just does. Give yourself, you'll be more productive. Taking breaks, for some of us that feels like we're slacking, it's not. You're actually giving your body what it needs to be more productive in the long term. But at the end of the day, especially if we're still either hybrid and sometimes we work from home, sometimes we're in the office, or if we're only work from home. How about you guys? I've been work from home for 6 years now.
Wow. 3 years for me. 3 years for me.
Okay. So did that coincide with the pandemic or a little bit before?
It did for me, yes, it did.
Okay.
For me,
All right. So it's different, isn't it? You can't put on the rage metal or the really twangy country music or whatever you do on your drive home to get the frustration out, or to just transition from being super corporate professional you to, okay, now I can go home and I can breathe and I can just be myself you, right? I have a very wide playlist on my phone, as you could tell. It could be Ella Fitzgerald one day and Weird Al Yankovic the next. Nobody knows. But when you don't have that drive home, how do you transition from one state of mind into the other? It's a little bit more difficult. But Viva Insights, virtual commute.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not magic, but it's almost magical. It really does give you a way to, I'm going to use my old server term, quiesce that work brain and transition out to go be a real human being that does whatever you do when you're not at work. I moved into this house about 2 years ago. We've built a house during the pandemic. It was crazy. But this is a dedicated office. I haven't always had that luxury. So it was harder to just turn off work. And when I would turn off work, I'd still be like, okay, I have to remember to do this, this, and this tomorrow. And I need to do this, this, and this. Or I look at my husband and go, oh, help me remember tomorrow. I need to. That's not mindfully disconnecting, right? That's staying actually half connected. So when you go to Viva Insights and you set up your virtual commute, you tell it what time you want to wrap your day. Not every day goes like clockwork. So you may have to push it off a little bit some days. When you start, oh, it gives you really great stuff. So I'm just going to kind of click through. The first thing you do is it brings up your to-do, because we all use to-do, right? If you don't, try it, because it'll bring up to-do. Make sure you've marked off the tasks that you did do. Those reminders for those to-do tasks are going to be in those morning insights emails. It's in to-do. And as we go to the next day, right, they'll be back. Right? If you haven't completed them, they'll be back. So you mark those off. Next card will come up. And you'll kind of, again, go add any new tasks. This is where I always go, I have to remember to do this, this, and this, 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 and this, 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 and this. Not if you do the virtual commute. You'll mark off and you'll add any of those things you haven't captured yet. When you capture those new tasks, you're letting go of the day, but you're not forgetting. You're not stressing about it. They've been captured. You're done. Reminders are going to come up, and then it's going to kind of walk you through some things that came in that maybe haven't been captured yet. Like this example was, Lynn said, can you schedule a meeting? And you can say, oh, I've already done that. Or you can add it to your tasks. So you got the to-do card there. It'll give you a recap of what you're going to do tomorrow. Now, I still, right before bed, I grab my phone and I go on my calendar and I'm like, okay, these are the things I'm doing tomorrow. I just like that. And then I turn my phone off and I go to bed. But this helps you go, okay, tomorrow, my first meeting is going to be at 8. Maybe you've got the morning off and your meeting's going to be at 10, gives you your preview. And then it's going to ask you to reflect on how your day went and how you feel at the end of the day. I need to actually submit this as real feedback. I wish it also gave you like a tiny little box where you could say why it was a great day or what was a challenge. I'm not a journaler, but I think that would be useful.
Yeah.
So there, and we step through. It will ask you to go through like a little meditation thing. I'm going to be honest. Sometimes I do this, but sometimes I have a schnauzer barking at me that it really is dinner time now, Mom. Or the husband's here and he's like, he's starting dinner and it's starting to smell really good. And so maybe I do, maybe I don't. Flip the coin. But once you get through that, you're done. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful way to close out the day. And I've just got one more slide here, just as a reminder. With the great power of technology that we have today, there should come great responsibility. I am very guilty at not logging off of Teams. I was on a Colorado road trip and my husband said, "Are you seriously on Teams when that vista is out that window?"
Busted.
Even had a question. And it would have been there once, right? So mobility makes it too easy to overwork and it makes it hard to disconnect. Staying connected 24/7 is not healthy. It's not good for you, your brain, and probably the people around you because they're actually the living, breathing flesh that's around you most of the time. So we should honor that and be respectful of the people around. And that last bullet point is true. My family was walking into a restaurant and I was sitting in the car going, I've almost got the slide done, doing it on my mobile phone. So I try to practice what I preach. I just don't always succeed. And working on PowerPoint on your phone is not for the faint of heart.
No.
Unless phone screens get really bigger, but then no.
And then we're back to iPads, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest challenges I found is the company I work with has multiple time zones. So sometimes you have to work late because you're getting pings and whatnot.
True.
So yeah, but I guess to your point, it's a balancing act. You have to balance because otherwise it's never going to end. It's going to go 24/7. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like especially if you're coming at this from the consultant perspective, I call it the curse of the consultant. It is hard to say no because you feel like you're letting people down. But I've had to learn that not scheduling over my focus time to book today, but saying I can meet in 2 days, or let's pick a time late this week or early next week. I can better serve that customer and client because I can better give them the time, the attention they need instead of cramming it in at an inconvenient time for me. So I'm not doing anyone a disservice by going, I guess I'll do this real fast. I'm going to push everything out of the way. Well, that's not the attitude I should be approaching work with anyway. So it's that whole balance thing. I really try to remember that information technology is a service we provide to our customers, our clients, whether that's internal or external. So it's important to give them the time and attention they deserve to.
Right. I really hope we didn't lose Abdul too much.
I'm here, but yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
I don't know why the camera actually.
that's okay.
Oh, technology.
See, we said something bad. Look what happens. You know.
Exactly.
Well, that's all my content. I threw up my contact information just to have it out there. Yeah, I hope this was a useful conversation. It's not a super deep, dark, technical with lots of cool behind the scenes info. But I think we forget that we're humans too.
I personally, I think it's refreshing to hear what other folks have seen work and not work, and kind of, it's always good to just like level set and baseline and say, oh, you know what, that's the yeah, I'm using focus time, but I've ignored it when it said, well, I have a suggestion that you might want to move it. Like, oh, oops,
Yeah.
guilty of
Yeah.
that.
Sharon Weaver is a very good friend and mentor to me, and she once kind of just stared me down in the eye and she says, yeah, you book your focus time, but do you actually use it? It's like,
Oh no.
she's like,
So
wouldn't you advise your customers to use it? I'm like, that's okay. Okay.
right.
She's like, you have to honor yourself too. Okay.
So this has been fantastic. Thank you. There's so much goodness, so much great
Thanks.
content out of this.
I'm
I
doing this back
actually,
in a second.
Yeah, I'm trying to play with my video. So yeah.
no worries.
Well, this
We had you for a second, but that's okay. I actually, Joy, I did have, you mentioned something, and it just, I got to bring it up because it's something that I kind of adjusted in the past few months, which was the agenda thing, right? So I've tried to get good at it, and I found something that, at least for me, works. Maybe it'll work for somebody else too. But
please
when I
share.
schedule the meetings, I will try to, knowing that it's going to be probably half an hour or an hour, somewhere in between there. Usually it's going to be, probably the 45-minute mark, but 3 bullets. I try to keep it 3 bullets, 3 things that I'm definitely going to cover. So it's like,
Okay.
here's the things that I know. Usually it's about a 5 or 10-minute conversation anyways. So try to keep it to 3 bullets.
Like
And
that.
then if there's any other like artifacts, any cheat sheets, any URLs, whatever, I'll just slide that in and say, hey, by the way, can you go and read this before the meeting? And if you haven't made it to the meeting, go check it out afterwards as a reminder. So
I like that because that keeps it from feeling like it's a burden. Like I can't come up with a paragraph. I don't know, but I know at least need to cover
right,
these 2 things. And
right.
what supports that too, I like that. I'm gonna adopt that. Thank you. I like the meeting insights too that comes up that says
Yeah.
these things might also be related. Sometimes it's not, but sometimes it's like, oh, I forgot about that email. Now I won't look
So
stupid when I get in there.
and the other one, you mentioned Lori, but I think I might drop her note too, because something you said, it made me think about a feature that we don't really have in Teams. And wouldn't it be great if it said, hey, you got an upcoming meeting and you don't have an agenda set up? Or it's a little more intelligent to say, as folks are coming into the meeting, just throw up the agenda on the screen. So
Oh
it's like there's a
yeah.
little bit of video interaction, but throw the agenda up so people can
That's
review it while we're
really
chit-chatting, doing the first couple minutes. So
yeah, that would be great. And insights could even be like, hey, you scheduled a meeting and I saw that you did not have an agenda. Did you mean to do that?
yeah.
Shame you into going, oh,
Team.
I didn't mean to do that. Busy.
Right. Oh my God.
Pressure.
But awesome. So I didn't see any other questions from our folks. I know we're streaming all over the place, so they sometimes they come in, sometimes they don't, but we really hope that everybody enjoyed this as much as I did. I know you did, Joy. Thank you for your time, for your energy, for your insights.
Pleasure.
And Abdul, wherever you may be, probably pulling cables under his desk or something. Thank you again. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody, and don't forget to subscribe if you like this content. We'd love to have you back. So thank you, and have a great time.
Thank you. Have a great night.